left, right.
Maybe you have, maybe somebody you know has, but what's happening across this country and across many countries on this earth are that people are giving up on dating. In fact, there are many countries where the population increase has flatlined. People aren't getting together and they're not getting married, they're not making babies. Something's happening. Well, we are talking about that in this episode, episode 247, Sip Talk. This is Sip Talk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Press this go.
Cheers.
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 All right, we are live. This is Sip Talk, episode 247. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Bosnetter Boswell, philanderer, philosopher, philanthropist, philatelist, man of many PHs, trying to think on the fly of some other PH words, and I'm out.
You could say photographer, but that's never been my thing.
That's not, well, your brother was a photographer for a
My
little
brother
while.
did it professionally.
Yeah.
If you look at my cell phone, there's like maybe 15 pictures on it, and I think that's even high.
Well, that's really, you don't take pictures on your phone?
Rarely.
Dude, I have somewhere in the order, like I'm not exaggerating, about 80,000 photos on my
I believe it. Like, I've probably taken less than 1,000 photos on my phone lifetime.
So today we are talking about giving up on dating. I got no segue into this one. I don't know how we're going to get from photography to giving up on dating, but I can tell you one thing: I'm going to need a drink. What are you drinking down there in sunny South Carolina?
My first and likely only beer of the week, a PBR.
A PBR. Wow, back in the money, man. Last I heard, you got priced out.
Yeah, I mean, these were not bought by me, so that's why I'm drinking it.
Get it.
But no, I'm trying to cut back on bad health, and well, the boozing was getting too much, so I'm replacing the boozing with running, and it sucks.
We spoke. We'll get on the topic in a second, but I'm curious. You know, we speak once a week, sometimes in between. By the way, we want your input on giving up on dating. So there is a link to join us in my Instagram profile and in my TikTok profile for you to join and give your opinion. We'll let you in when we're ready for you. So remind me of what you challenged me to last week after the podcast.
So I'm doing a self-imposed challenge where I run at least 1 mile per day, every day for a month. Now I'm giving myself 1 day a week off to allow my body to recover, because like you can get overuse injuries pretty easily, even if it's just a mile. But
especially with running, and especially when you were out of shape to start.
yeah, and like I've been making it up by like at least one of these days a week. Instead of running, I'm doing like an hour long
bike ride or something
instead.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's more than enough. But I'm about 2 weeks into it now, and I missed Monday, but I made up for it on Tuesday by running 2 miles instead of 1. So I feel like I'm still on track here. And the challenge that I issued you was, 2 weeks from 1 week ago, see which one of us can put up the best single mile time. And you're currently in the lead at what, like a 6:57?
I was 6:50. So my first mile was 7:07, which knocked my socks off. I have not.
It wasn't a 7:07 though. That was 0.98.
Well, it was 4 laps around the track. Okay, that's a GPS error. And then the next was 6:54, but it took me a little while until I had passed the finish line. It took me a second to hit the stop button, so 6:55, but not bad. I worked out my legs. I was going to run last night, but I also had to work out legs. I chose to do the strenuous leg workout, so I'll probably run again Saturday morning once my legs have recovered. We'll see how that goes. And where are you?
My best time is a 7:30. I'm gonna go out tonight and see if I can do better than that. Because I haven't really, like, for one, like running on a track, which is what you've been doing, is a lot easier to set a good time. I've been running on a road at night.
Yeah, but you also, the nice thing about the track is you can pace yourself based on where you are
Right. I don't have good reference points. I don't have a good surface, and I'm not really doing any splits whatsoever. So it's just like I know roughly where the finish line is on my road route, but like where like my where my 8th mile splits are, I couldn't tell you. So
Yeah.
I'm just running purely on feel.
So look, so we got one guest in the chamber already. We got Elizabeth. We need to get into the topic because it's
Yep.
a pretty cool topic. Giving up on dating. Why? And Elizabeth, we'll let you in just a minute. Let us just tease the topic a little bit. Why are some people? And I feel like this is, and we did a whole episode on sex in Japan, right? About how the birth rates are down in Japan.
Mhm.
A lot of Asian countries, the population increase rate is almost flatlined because people aren't sleeping together, which also means they're not dating. So yeah, and we're seeing that happen in the U.S. I have some friends who have just kind of given up on dating altogether, and I'm curious. We have a long list of our own theories, and it doesn't mean simply you've now found a relationship, you got married, you're no longer dating. The point is, why have you
You're single and you're choosing to stay single, or at least you're not putting in like much, if any, effort towards changing it.
All right. So don't forget, if you guys are watching us, the link is in on my profile page. You click that link, we'll let you in. I guess for starting, we'll let Elizabeth in. We'll give Elizabeth a couple minutes to share her perspective, and we'll go back to our list here. So without further ado, let's see. Elizabeth, are you there? Can you hear us? I'll take that as a maybe, with no affirmation on that. Elizabeth, I'm gonna knock you right back off here if we don't hear from you in just a second. James, in the meantime, any you want to start anywhere on this list?
Well, I'm not going to go in order. I'm going to start with, because I got inspired by this because I saw a post on Reddit asking kind of this question. There were a whole bunch of responses, and for me, the one that kind of stood out as the most common was a lot of people were saying like, life is better when you're single, like where at least from a male perspective, it's nice like when you have a free weekend to not be like pestered into having to go to like a craft fair or a brunch
Or craft fair?
you, you,
I have never been to a craft fair. I don't know.
no, but you know what I mean. It's like or like a farmer's market where like
Farmers market is what I was thinking of when you said craft fair.
well, they're kind of the same.
Okay, all right. I don't. Yeah,
But
I haven't
to
been
be
to a
able to
farmers
just
market.
do your own thing and not have to worry about whether or not you're disappointing somebody. And it's like you might not have anybody to comfort you, but you're also not letting anybody down. You're responsible only to yourself, and like there's a lot of appeal to that lifestyle. It makes me think of one of the first stand-up comedy specials we ever watched was Ted Alexandro.
I like that one.
And he talks about being single, and he says being single's a balance between loneliness and euphoria. Loneliness, that moment or two before you go to bed every night, and euphoria, pretty much the rest of the day.
I think your delivery was wrong. I think the nice thing about being single is you have the entire freedom all day long, total euphoria. You do whatever the hell you want to do. It's just that there's a little bit of loneliness, and that only kicks in right when you go to bed and you're sitting there solo.
Yeah, so most people, like the people that are choosing to be single, are like, you know what? 23 hours and 55 minutes out of the day, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. So, all right, hang on. Let's
See if we can get
let
Elizabeth back
back
in.
in. She's asking if we hear. We can't hear you. Let's see. Elizabeth, are you back? Your microphone on? We have enabled your mic here. We just.
All right, can you hear me now?
Oh, now we can hear you. Yeah. All right. Welcome, Elizabeth. So tell us, why are people giving up on dating in the year 2024?
Because they realize that most time you waste of time, sharing your time with someone that's at the end.
James, can you? Your audio is a little fuzzy there. James, can you translate some of that? Yeah, I noticed.
I wasn't able to hear it very well either.
Oh, all right. Yeah, your audio, Elizabeth, is not too. It's a little hairy there.
I know. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's very muffled. If you want to send something in the chat, I'm gonna knock you up. If you want to share your comment here in the chat, we'll read it. But I do appreciate the input. It sounded like she said something about the New York Times. That's all I get out of
Yeah,
it.
it was really muffled. I wasn't able to make out much.
It is tough when you join this link if you're kind of talking from headphones or something in an outdoor location. Let's hit our first thing here though is too many options. I feel like some people have, so we take out people for real estate, and when we're looking at apartments, we're looking at spaces to rent or to buy. A lot of the time people have a difficult time making a decision on anything because the choice that's in front of them, while it may be clear to the expert, to the professional, to me that it's the best thing for them, they have this perception that there are that many other options out there.
Well, hold on. Let me double down on this one in terms of there's a famous psychological experiment where they had like raspberry jam or like different jams, and they set up tasting booths in grocery stores. And in some of the grocery stores, they set up a tasting booth where there were two options, like raspberry jam or grape jam, right? And then another grocery store, they'd set up a booth that had like 10 options, like raspberry jam, peach jam, strawberry jam, you know it.
This is the premise for the book called Paradox of Choice, I believe.
It might be.
I think this is the study that inspired the book.
But they ran this test where, like, in one grocery store you'd have two options to sample from, and the other you'd, let's say, 10. And then they measured how many people bought something that they sampled, and people bought way more when they were only given two choices versus 10. And it's like you get paralyzed by having too many options, so you just don't pick at all.
Yeah, and that's what happens, especially in big cities, is that you find it difficult to settle on something because you're always looking for that more specialized option, the thing that is best fitting for you. And really the reality is, especially when it comes to dating, is that nobody's going to be across all aspects exactly a perfect 10. And that's kind of asking for too much. You need to weight those different aspects and find the person that kind of has the highest rating for you with your highest weighted interest, effectively, in a partner.
Well, I would say two things. One is like the too many options thing, I think, is going to be one, location dependent, as you mentioned, but I also think it's going to be gender dependent.
Well, I mean, what do you mean?
I think that
if you're just heterosexual or homosexual?
No, I think that
because I suppose when you become bisexual, your options kind of double, although they're receptive to you, so that's the counter.
No, I think it's that women generally are going to have more options than men.
Well, I think that's always the case.
Yeah, but when you're talking about, like, not everyone's going to be a 10 out of 10 on every scale that you rate on, like, that's gonna we'll circle back to that one in terms of, like, having standards that are too high or too low, and also when it comes to, like, expectations that people have going into dating, and like the effect of, like, social media and just general media, because, like, you can think about, like, rom-com movies and stuff like that setting expectations for what a relationship's supposed to be like, and how especially in the rom-com field, the messages they send are terrible.
Well, also every movie, especially in rom-com, it ends with kind of happily ever after, which is really usually just the beginning of a relationship.
Yes.
So that relationship generally has only reached kind of one critical challenge, which was surmounted in the climax of the movie, and it's usually the beginning of the relationship, and then there's no real like depth to that actual relationship. So yeah, I think the too many options thing is a reason somebody can maybe go on a few dates, or maybe they have a difficult time even committing to actually going on any dates because they're just waiting for that perfect person. And then unfortunately, as us humans age, time can get the best of you, and then you have kind of this diminishing returns. The longer you wait, the kind of the lousier the options get.
Yeah, and that kind of gets to the, like, what I'm finding in my own personal life is too few quality options.
Well, but that's sometimes there are good-looking people that are missing on a lot of other aspects of being a good partner. And
Well,
as you get older, you certainly learn to look for those things as well. But the quality is really finding somebody that personality wise and looks wise you are attracted to.
well,
I
it
want to
also,
know.
like, hold on, really quick. As you get older, it gets harder and harder to find quality options for a couple reasons, but I would say chiefly because the quality options tend to get taken out of the market.
Well, yeah, they disappear first. I want to just hit the TikTok comment here from Orlisa saying she gave up dating in 2015, which is well pre-pandemic. She said it's quiet, peaceful, and she runs on her own time, and she can go to bed without a headache every night. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching on TikTok or Instagram, you can join us. The link is in my profile for you to join and share your input. We're trialing this in this episode, see if we get some people to join. We got Elizabeth who is trying to jump in, but we're troubleshooting some audio issues here. Next up on the list is bad experiences. And dating can really, you have personal trauma, but then you also have some traumatic experiences dating. And that can, if you're, especially, I imagine if you're a young lady and you go out with guys who kind of have one agenda, and that's just to get laid. A lot of people aren't trying to make quality connections, and you don't always know someone's goal in dating you until you go out on that date. And sometimes you don't know on the first date. A lot of people are really bad at dating, and they don't tell you what it is that they're looking for. So
Well,
somebody early
hang
on,
on. I want to talk about my negative sum theory of dating here because you're touching on it, which is like on a first date, you can't be 100% honest.
well,
Think about it.
well, it is a bit of a sale. You are selling yourself, right? So you're going to leave out some of the downsides, but you also, here's the issue: you don't want to overpromise,
You
because
don't
then
want to
that's going
overpromise,
to
but
catch up to
also,
you, and it's going to build resentment and distrust.
but you also don't like want to overexpress, which is like if the date's going really, really well, you don't want to be overly excited about it, and you don't want to just like start to act like you were super into this person after only knowing them for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. And so you have two people that are both disincentivized from being completely honest because they don't want to turn the other person off, and they're also disincentivized from expressing how they really feel about the other person because they either don't want to offend or come off as too eager.
Also,
And so
listen,
like the first date experience is basically both partners making decisions that are negatively impacting their own ability to assess whether this person is good for them.
also listen. If you are on a first date, you don't know very much about that person. Okay, so if you are really excited, you're really happy, you think it's going really well, I would imagine there's a decent amount of projection that's going on. So you're filling in the blanks of the things that you don't know. So basically you get along with somebody, great. But once you date somebody for a month or 2 months, like there's a lot of shit you get to learn about them, personalities, idiosyncrasies. So you're basically in that first date, if you think it's going well, like you haven't found all that stuff out. So you're projecting positives for the most part in those placeholders.
I would say there's a lot of extrapolation that you have to do on a first date.
But what I was saying is, I think you ought to be very honest, at least with what you want. And a lot of people aren't, because they're afraid of saying, oh, I'm looking for something long term, or I'm just looking for sex, or I'm just looking for a companion and no sex, or I don't know. People have different needs.
I guess,
I'm sure that happens, especially the older you get. A lot of people are afraid to state these things early on, and what happens is you mislead the other person, and that other person can really get burnt.
I will say that that's not a foolproof strategy because, like, I've been very clear on this podcast that I never want to have kids, and I'm equally clear with people that I go on first dates with about it.
Well,
And
too bad you can't generate first dates from the podcast. People already know you're.
well, yeah, but
I'm not,
I've had first dates where like I have willingly torpedoed it and just like watch it like sink to the bottom of the ocean, and I just wave bye to the date, because that's not the answer they want. Is like they want to have kids at some point in life, and I'm just like, nope, not going to happen. But that's a choice that I'm making, because I'm like, I know this is going to end the date, so be it. But I've also had experiences where I've been 100% upfront about never wanting kids, and that message has been interpreted as maybe I can change his mind.
Let's bring in Elizabeth. She thinks she has fixed her audio issue. We will see, but I am curious what she was saying about the New York Times. Maybe I missed.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Let's hope the audio is better.
All right, Elizabeth, are you with us again?
Can you hear me?
That's much better.
That seems better. Yeah.
All right. I had to grab my son's headphones.
All right. So what's up? Tell us your input here as to why people are giving up dating in 2024.
What was the question again?
Why are people giving up on dating?
Wasted of time most of the time. Wasted of energy. Like.
Can you give us an example of like a date that you were on that was a waste of time, or why you think dating can be a waste of time?
Because at the end, you spend so much time with that person, and at the end, you never ended up knowing that person. Like you thought you would know the person. That's one. These days, everyone is more like materialistic, like more like they don't see the emotionally side.
Yeah, I will agree, and I definitely see you on the wasted time aspect of it, especially when you've gone on a handful of dates with different people, and it seems like you're just not connecting with these people at all. Now, what I find is that your picker is generally off. You're looking for people that are kind of fitting. Maybe you're looking for people based off looks, or maybe you're looking for people based off income. But there's something that and it could just be a sample bias. Maybe and
we have different worlds. Everyone wants different things, but these days, like the generations don't want to have kids anymore. Why? Because at the end, it's a fucked up world.
Well, there are a lot of younger people that definitely don't want to have kids. James, you're a generation too early, I think. On this, I think if you were the next generation, you'd find a lot more people that, especially in their early 20s, are saying, you know what, I'm not interested in having kids at all. I'll commit to that right now. I'll make this relationship my priority rather than kids a priority, and see what happens.
The problem is, based on conversations I've had with many women, like, you can't trust what someone says in their early 20s about not wanting to have kids, because a lot of times people's priorities start to change in their late 20s and early 30s, and even people that said that they didn't want to have kids start to change their mind between, I don't know, 28 and 35 or so. And I had a lot of people tell me that when I was 25, and I'm just like, I'm 37 now, and like, still no kids.
They were hoping your priorities would change and you would decide that you want to have kids.
Or they just thought that I was wrong, and I was just like, I'll make a bet with you today. I'll even give you 100 to 1 odds.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for your input. I think James and I will expand on that, but I'm glad you got your audio straightened out. I know you catch a lot of these podcasts, so thank you for joining. We'll catch up with you a little later. We'll knock you off air here, but thank you for the input.
I do want to circle back at some point to the whole materialism comment that she made, because that's on our list.
I think kind of the greater point that she was making, though, is the wasted time, and that's that you go on a date and you do whatever you had to do, especially if you have kids. But or as a guy, you're spending that money, but you go on this date, it goes poorly, and then you're like, oh man, I put myself out there, I got my hair done, I got my nails done, I got a babysitter, and then I went out with this person. They found out I had kids, or we found out just personalities didn't match, and I wasted my time. And then they try to do it again the next week, and it's really easy to do with internet dating. And especially when your online persona is this amplified version of all of your positive qualities and none of your negative qualities.
Or just a distilled version, because if you look at like Tinder or Bumble or whatever, like you get maybe like 5 or 6 photos, and like a paragraph or two of text, and it's really difficult to be able to capture who you are with such little information. And so the date doesn't even need to go poorly, because like a couple months ago I went on a date and it didn't go poorly. Like we both got along and everything, but there was no chemistry, there was no spark there. And so neither of us have reached out to each other again. I hold no ill will against this person, but was it a waste of time? Maybe, because
Well, it didn't, yeah,
neither
but
of us really got anything out of it.
it didn't achieve the goal, and that was to find something a little more intimate. Again, guys, if you're watching us on TikTok or Instagram, the link to join and share your opinion is in my bio. So check out the bio, click on that link, we'll let you in. So we mentioned having too many options here, but also the having too few options. If you live in a small town, if you live in a town where maybe it's a very poor town and you're looking for something bigger in your life, you may not be finding the options that you're looking for. I know all the internet dating apps have a location, so you can kind of set your radius.
Yeah, but like, do you really want to be dating somebody that's like 50 miles away and you have to travel over an hour to see them every time? That's annoying.
That was the next point that I was going to make. Is if you're increasing that radius and increasing that radius, you're not finding. You finally find somebody, but they live 2 towns over, or a 55-minute highway drive away. Especially if you're going on some dates and you're having a couple of drinks, like that can get, that can get pretty old pretty quick.
I had a buddy in Charleston that drove to Raleigh for a first date. For those who don't know, that's like a 4.5-hour drive.
Yeah, so that's somebody who and
I told him, like, dude, this is a bad idea. And then later on that day, he comes back. He was like, that was a waste of time. And I was like, I told you that last night.
Just what Elizabeth said. And then so next up is too few quality options, which I think is really the same. But I'll let you.
Well, no, you can have plenty of options, but like if you live in a really small town and like there's lots of towns in this country that I'm just going to say are depressing to drive through, where the prospects for employment, the prospects for a better life are very low, where the health of the people that live in the town is very low, the ambition is low. And so the number of people that are attractive or successful is also very low, because chances are the attractive and successful people moved.
Yeah, they have more options. So yeah, if you're in that location, you may need to consider moving.
Well, and I can say, like, in Charleston, I'm having this problem to a degree because I'm very clear about not wanting to have kids, and I'm in the South where like not wanting to have kids is pretty rare, and and at my age, my other rule is you can't have kids. I won't date you if you have kids. And like for me to find somebody that's in my age range that doesn't have kids is getting increasingly more difficult.
Well, I was going to talk about that. So here's why you may give up on dating. Here's another reason, and we'll skip ahead on my list here. But if you do have children, you may choose not to date because you don't want to have the kind of this turmoil of having different people in and out of your life, or two, you may just decide, I want to give my kids X life, and I don't think they need to have, we don't need this other person. I don't want to take away from my current family life. So, I'm just going to postpone dating. And then of course, 16, 18, 12, 9 years go by, and then you're a totally different person. You may decide, what, I've been single for the last decade and a half. I think I like this life. And then maybe you do decide you want to get into dating, and you run into these issues where there's too many options or too few options or too few quality options. And the scene is really different. Well, like getting back into the workforce, you may give it a shot and be like, what, this is not the same as it was 10, 15 years ago. No, thank you.
Well, when it comes to dating with kids, and I'm going to demonstrate some empathy here, is imagine you have kids. Like, when you first start dating somebody, you don't know what the prospects are for this person. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But at some point, you're going to have to introduce this person to your kids. And kids, especially young kids, can get attached pretty easily. And what you don't want to do is set your kids up to build some kind of parental relationship with the person that you're dating and have the prospect that that person just leaves your life, because like in most stages of dating that can happen pretty easily. And,
Parental
and now
relationship
now
and
your
emotional.
kids are kind of collateral damage here
Yeah, well,
because they didn't
because
do anything wrong.
your kids can also be emotionally dependent on that person because they're
Right, that's what I mean in terms of collateral damage. Is that person leaves your life, they're also leaving your kid's life. And like your kids are being harmed even though they didn't do anything wrong. And so you can easily say, I have kids and I don't want to risk like my relationship with my kids in the pursuit of somebody that may or may not work out.
So here's another one on top of that: having a crazy ex. So this is especially worse if you do have kids, and maybe this is the parent to those children,
Where you shared custody or something where you
Hey.
basically have to see them every so often.
or that person kind of has a reason to turn up at the doorstep at any point in time, and they can come in and create issues, and there's not much you can do, and potentially you do run the risk of losing custody of your own kids. Where else should we go here on our list? Where else should we go on the list?
Standards.
Okay, well, your standards could be. Well, I think if your standards are too low, you may give up on dating because you end up just having too many bad options, and then you just give up on dating.
Well,
If
hold
you're-
on. No, if your standards are too low, then you're going to be in a constant cycle of dysfunctional relationships, and eventually you're going to leave all relationships because you say every one of my relationships is terrible, therefore relationships must be terrible, so I'm just not going to be in relationships. And that's because you're picking the wrong people.
Yeah, well, and then the opposite is having the high standards, and then you end up going on dates that a lot of times you're picking somebody because maybe their Instagram profile has a sports car, or they have some nice looking abs, or they appear to be rich or good looking, and you go on these dates and you find out that you really have nothing in common. And they may not even be interested in you. They might just be using you for some quick sex or to make themselves feel better about themselves. And you never really develop that connection. And then you just say, you know what? Fuck this. No thanks. This is.
Well, or you could just have standards that are so high that you reject everybody and you never go on any dates because nobody's up to snuff.
Well, but that's also that's the reality. If you're a high value person with high self-esteem, dating can also be very difficult. A lot of people turn to dating to fill voids and fill a gap in their lives. And it could be tough to find somebody.
My personal experience is that after every relationship, my standards go up, not down.
Some people are the actual inverse. But I think if your standards are going up after every relationship, it will become decreasingly. It'll become more difficult each go around for you to find somebody who is better.
Well, that's 100% true,
and that's why
that's exactly my experience. Is that every time I enter a relationship or exit a relationship, I'm evaluating what went wrong and what went right, and I'm kind of like keeping a list of the things that killed the last relationship and saying, okay, if you see this again, just don't get into the relationship. And that list is growing. And
I know it starts with mental health.
Yeah.
But on that, because we've done a couple episodes about mental health, and we've included actually some of your past experiences. But on the mental health note is the trauma and abuse. So some people choose not to continue to date because they've had some crazy trauma. I think a lot of it is with an increasing number of narcissists, not just clinical narcissists, but I think people who have more and more narcissistic tendencies. And I think kind of as of more recent, people are trending more narcissistic, which means they're kind of only out in their interests. They're misleading you. And they're sucking you in, and they're love bombing you, basically, meaning they kind of treat you like shit all the time, and then they will be really nice to you, and then kind of treat you like shit again, and make you try to earn that
It's exploiting the partial reinforcement theorem.
but point is, you can be kind of emotionally abusive to people as well as physically abusive. If you've been a physically abusive relationship, you can really have trauma and really be afraid. Usually it's women being abused by men physically, but oftentimes also
But women can physically abuse men. It happens. It's
they
less
can,
common,
but
but
emotionally it definitely goes both ways,
oh yeah.
especially when it comes to narcissism.
Real quick, Sasha has a comment that actually hits on one of our points, so let's address that. And Sasha says a lot of people have seen the bullshit their parents or other families have gone through and are choosing to not stay in relationships for years or decades if they're unhappy. And that brings us to our comment about like divorce and children of divorce. And my comment is like, if your earliest experience with relationships is witnessing your parents and your parents having a failed one, what hope are you going to have that you're going to succeed?
So on that note, if you guys do want to, I'm not reading the comments because today we have the link turned on for you to join. You don't have to join just on video. You can join just on voice alone, kind of like the old school radio call-in shows.
Yeah.
You jump in for 30 seconds, share your opinion with us. We'll kick you out when we feel we want to kick you out. But yeah, being a child of divorce and having, if your only understanding of a relationship is a volatile one, or one that ultimately failed, and you had to witness that, and that's the only construct of a relationship that you know, it can be scary to enter into a serious relationship. And a lot of relationships, and even good relationships, you are dependent on the other person
to some degree or another.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you need to depend on each other for a good relationship, or you shouldn't depend on each other for it to be a good relationship. But in many relationships, especially if you live together, you share finances, your lives are very much intermingled. And if you've seen, if the only understanding of a relationship at a high level that you have is your divorced parents, and the divorce rates are higher than they have ever been before, it can be very scary for people to get into serious relationships. And some people may decide they're not interested in that whatsoever. So we got trauma. Okay, next up is too broke to date. When I first,
this is more a problem for men.
Well, yeah, it's definitely more of a problem for men because typically men fund the dates. Men are expected to pay for the dates.
At least the first one.
Yeah, at least the first one. But also like in the beginning, when you don't always know how that person, what they're expecting, especially as a guy, like you should be, but even as a woman, I think, especially these days, you should be prepared to pay. So
at least half.
Even as a female, if you're going out on a date, you don't know the other guy. Like I'd like to pay, not in the first date, but kind of generally. To me, that's kind of a masculine trait. I think the guy should be the one paying. Now, there's occasion where a woman will say, "I'd like to, tonight's on me. I want to do this and this," and then it's expected. It's already clear that they're going to pay, and then I may say, "You know what? This round of drinks is on me. I want to make let me get a round. I'll go up to the bar and get some drinks." But if you are broke, it can be very difficult to date. And I went through that a decent amount when I started my real estate career and really struggled for the first year or so. And even prior to that, when I was deciding to get into real estate, the reason I got into real estate was because I was, the job that I had was not making me the money that I needed to survive, meaning I didn't have much of it, money, that is. And dating is really tough. And in a place like New York City, where you can go out for a couple of beers at happy hour, the beers are $6 each, but you order a
Where are you finding $6 beers in Manhattan?
Well, actually, there's a lunch spot near my office where it's $4 for a can of Founders Golden Ale. That's pretty cool. And they have a fucking $10. I'll just shout them out. Clinton Hall in Midtown Manhattan. They have a $10 lunch special where you can get a burger and fries. You get a nice Caesar salad with chicken. They got some other things too, with a $4 beer special. So you could literally get
pretty good, actually.
It's fucking wild, and that's wild outside of New York City.
I'd be happy with those prices in Charleston.
I can't find a salad at any place around me just to pick up and leave with. These guys serve a full salad at the bar with chicken, and I actually feel guilty just going. I'm like, all right, can I just get I don't want a beer. I'll even just order a beer or a non-alcoholic beer just to kind of sip on while I'm sitting there eating, because I feel guilty just spending $10. Which, I mean, me with a real estate background being like, yo, if I'm fucking spending $10, the cost of goods to prepare the salad is probably half of that. And then the cost of labor and the cost of rent worked into the salad is a lose for the restaurant. The restaurant is counting on me spending more money. So the least I can do is leave a decent tip and, buy a beverage. And then oftentimes I'll just like recruit some people in the office, be like, yo, I'm going to be here for 40 minutes. Want to drop by and just catch up real quick? And it's 50 feet from my office. But being broke is tough. And, mention on feminism and equality, but it still is expected that the man is going to pay. And before we get to rape, let me hit our bar trivia question from last week. And that was my rape teaser. The last time you'll ever hear me say that.
Yeah.
So the bar trivia question from last week: Deceptor, the famous magician, had a glass that was filled to the top. Holding the glass above his head, he let it drop to the carpet without spilling a single drop of water. How could D manage to drop this glass from over the height of 6 feet and not spill any water on the carpet? James?
My guesses were already rejected.
What was your guess?
That is ice.
Oh.
Or that he was standing on his head.
All right. Let me read the question again. Deceptor, the famous magician, had a glass that was filled to the top. He dropped it to the ground and managed to not spill any water. I never said the glass was full of water. He could have had a glass filled with coffee or soda, or maybe Founder's golden ale. He dropped
all of which are primarily water.
He dropped that sucker to the ground, and no water was spilled.
Well, probably a bunch of glass shards were.
Maybe, depending on the pile of that carpet.
Yeah.
So, and you got a question you got a bar trivia question at the end of this episode, right?
You told me I didn't.
I thought you did.
I do now, but
all right. All right. So stay tuned for this the next bar trivia question at the end of this episode, and don't forget, if you guys are interested in joining the conversation rather than just some insulting comments on TikTok, which we had some mean comments come in. We actually had Diana defending us on TikTok, so thank you to Diana.
What were the mean comments? I want to know.
Something about us talking about why people shouldn't date from the basement of our mom's houses or something. I don't really.
Hey.
Yeah, my mom keeps a full library in her basement. That's just she thought that was a cool place. My mom also.
We're not telling people not to date. We're trying to diagnose why people don't want to date.
My point was that neither one of us is in our mom's basement.
I mean, I wouldn't even care if I was.
My mom has a very old house from the 1800s. I think I've been in that basement like once. I have no desire. It's a creepy.
No, like my house doesn't even have a basement.
Oh yeah, you're in the South. You don't have a basement. All right, so.
All right, rape and sexual assault.
Yeah, that's a serious thing. Did you have something you want to?
I mean, I think that we need to recognize that for women, like especially for online dates, like it's different if you've been introduced to somebody because like you've already like that person's already kind of been vetted by your friends group or something. But for an online date where you're kind of going in blind, like going on a first date for women is kind of an underappreciated act of bravery.
Well, listen, in the last 100 years or less, as society has gotten to a point where single ladies can roam the streets, literally, it is still very much dangerous. You are out on your own with a stranger. We talked very briefly before we went on air, and this wasn't even something we were going to bring up, about a woman who was approached from behind. This is the Bronx, we said?
Yes.
We said it was a woman approached from behind the sidewalk. The man took his belt off, threw it around her neck, dragged her back 10, 12 feet on the sidewalk, put her between two cars, which is the opportune place to like take a piss if you're really going to piss walking through the streets, because people don't really pay attention to what's happening between the cars as they drive by. And he raped her in the middle, not in the middle of the street, but the side of the street.
Well, and the problem for women is like Like
You're out muscled.
in the vast majority of cases, if you're going on a date, the man is stronger than you.
And generally speaking, so I can understand now if you have had sexual assault before or rape, it can be a huge undertaking, requiring a lot of bravery to just get up and go out on your own, and it could be very distressing.
Because even if like we're not talking about straight up rape or sexual assault, like women are justifiably afraid of like men getting aggressive if you reject them.
Well, that's also the scary part. Men, like, there are some very poorly adjusted adult men that, like, when they don't, it's fucking weird. Because if somebody told me they weren't interested in me, I'd be like actually super respectful of that. I'd be like, oh shit, thank you for telling me now. Like, cool. Like, I'm really glad we cleared that up.
Yeah, like I don't want to be accused
like
of something that I didn't mean.
Do you want to buy an apartment? Because we can still have a relationship here.
Yeah.
You want to sell your apartment? But
like I don't want you doing something that you're not into.
But some men, adult men, and I don't even mean adult like 32 years old. I mean adult like 59 years old.
I mean, it's basically 18 to 80.
It's just weird. Some people cruise through life generally getting what they want and face very little rejection. And that's also sometimes because people don't put them out there, which on the guy side of things, putting themselves out there on a date could feel very risky. And if somebody's already in a place where they're uncomfortable, they are that much more likely to be aggressive and lash out when they are being rejected. Especially, and oddly, especially if they have coupled with low self-esteem. Even if you haven't been told no many times in your life, you can still have low self-esteem.
No, it's actually, if you have high self-esteem, you're actually better able to handle rejection.
There you go. Just like I said, thank you for letting me know you're not interested. Now do you want to buy an apartment?
Yeah.
But low self-esteem is also, next up on our list, a reason why.
Real quick, like the other thing that women have to fear on dates is like date rape drugs. Like GHB knocks you out. And like you can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it. You go to the bathroom, you come back, you have a sip of your drink, and you wake up 2 hours later not knowing what happened.
Have you ever been roofied?
No.
Have I told you the time that I got roofied?
No.
So I was in Florida to visit my sister. I was with my friend Adam. He came down. He flew down. My sister's not a big partier, not a big drinker. So him and I went out to kind of the strip in Fort Lauderdale. We had some drinks. It was kind of still the beginning of the night. It's like 9:30. We'd been out. We, went to a couple different bars. Now, anybody who knows me knows you can hang out with me. I can basically bar hop and be functional all night long. And you can tell I get a little.
I would say the last 2 hours of the night get a little sketchy for you.
But I can still. I'm conversational, and I can get up and hop around.
Too conversational.
Too conversational, and I could probably do a fucking handstand if I wanted to.
I would pay to see that.
Either way, we're only an hour or two into the night. I get a phone call. We're sitting at the bar. I step away from the bar, take the phone call, come back. I have a shot. The people at the other side of the bar send some shots. The bartender's like hanging over the bar. He's a gay guy, really into the conversation with us. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not gay, but thank you for being so friendly. I don't know, 10 minutes passed. We decided to go to the next place, and I can barely fucking stand up. I'm like walking down the block, getting like crazy wobbly. I'm like just kind of seeing kind of like white spots and I'm like, dude, I feel really fucked up. How much do we have to drink? And I was like, oh, we didn't like, I feel fine. We didn't drink that much. So my next move was to go to a CVS and drink like 5-hour energy drinks and buy a couple of rolls of Oreos.
I mean, that's what roofing will do to you, is like you go from zero to like completely incapacitated very quickly, and there's no way that you can know it's coming up on you.
I mean, I'm this point in time, I'm 225 pounds, so I could probably handle it pretty much better than a 125 or 130 pound young lady.
Right. But like, think about it like this, like, yeah, you're 225 pounds. So like less people are going to be trying to mess with you from the start. And you had a friend there. Imagine you're a girl by yourself. Think about how scary that would be.
It is scary.
So like, I'm on the women's side about like the whole fear of getting roofied, and I read stories about it because like Charleston has a bit of a problem with it in certain bars.
It's a really guys who do that are really pieces of shit. It's a really low level to go.
Like,
I can't even.
women are not 100% guilty, but probably 95 to 99% of date rape drug
Let me
usage is by
let me
men.
ask you, you scumbag motherfuckers. You gonna slip some pill or some powder in some lady's drink, and then she's just gonna be like drooling on the floor. You're gonna drag her to your car or bring her back to
Yeah.
your place. And
How
have
is that fun for you?
And then you're gonna feel. How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel? Like you must. This person was not like complicit. The nice thing about like getting laid is like having somebody else that's into you also wanting it.
Yeah.
Like the nice thing about getting laid is having somebody want you.
And like them enjoying the experience.
Well, that's I would say 2/3 of sex. Like you need to be also pleasing the other person. Obviously, it's good for you, but the goal, like the goal is to have this mutual experience with someone else. Otherwise, just watch some fucking porn.
Right, like it's way less fun if the other person's just kind of there and you know that they're gritting their teeth and whatever. Like they just want to get through it. Like, how is that fun? It isn't.
All right, let's move on here. Low self-esteem. Now, if you do really have low self-esteem, maybe you just say, you know what, I don't feel fit for dating. I'm gonna bow out of that conversation. I'm gonna bow out of this entirely. So the low self-esteem thing, I understand. That's one reason why some people don't date. Next up, I have, and this is funny because I actually grabbed some late lunch today, and the guy behind the bar said abandonment issues, and I was like, oh fuck, I didn't even think about that. So the thing is, especially when you're young, when you start dating somebody, you say, oh, this is the person that completes me. This is somebody that I can really connect with. They understand. I'm sharing more with this person because we connect in this level that I never have before, and I'm pouring my heart, and this person is an extension of me. And when that relationship dies, which especially if you're young,
If they leave,
it almost inevitably will. Well, whether they just leave you and they fuck you over, or the relationship dies as it can, you have now poured yourself into someone else, and it's over. And you can have this feeling of heartbreak, or in the case that they did leave, abandonment, and really be afraid to open yourself back up to anyone again and build that connection ever with anyone again. So abandonment
it is a
issues
somewhat
is
logical
one,
response.
and actually on the abandonment issue, to expand on that though, is this person who was the bartender came from was an orphan, and,
Well, yep.
said, I have attachment issues because I have a fear of being abandoned. So there's multiple aspects of the abandonment issue, and of the heartbreak issue, and it can take a while to get past either. And many people literally never get past either, which is why they may just say, you know what, I'm gonna bow out of trying to find a partner and go through this solo.
And those kinds of experiences in formative years are thought to be one of the major causes for borderline personality disorder.
Oh, I didn't know that. I suppose it makes sense though, because your brain is very young.
It's like having an unstable early life and unstable attachments early in your life make you both seek stable attachments but have this fear of being abandoned or rejected. And so that's why you see this push pull with people that have borderline, is they get really really close because they want that attachment, and then they get afraid of being abandoned, and so they bail so that they can be the one in control of it.
Mhm.
And that cycle repeats itself, and it all comes from that unfulfilled desire that they didn't get early in life.
Well, on an aspect of that, is dating to find completeness, is thinking that you need another person in your life to complete you, and you're.
I'm going to blame rom-coms for this one.
Oh yeah, well, you complete me, I think, is a line from Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. That's where I was going. It's like the you complete me, like that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, but like that's
But
not every relationship.
And the thing is, where they tell anybody who's like freshly single, the advice you always get, which every newly single person fucking hates this, is work on yourself.
Well, I mean, there's truth to that,
dude. Work on yourself, chick. Work on yourself, fucker. Like, work on you. Go for a jog. Do some exercise. Build you. But don't. But you had me at gin and tonic. I think it was you had me at hello, Raj. You had me at gin and tonic. You're probably thinking maybe a parody. But but yeah, trying to find somebody who completes you, you need to complete yourself, and that's going to make you be able to date better. But if you're not a complete person and you're coming to the table with trauma, you're coming to the table with this, that, or the next, dating is going to be very difficult. And that is why some people do. We also, the conversation we have diverged, and it kind of fell into this separate tangent conversation of trauma and victims, and how everybody now is become a victim, whereas people from 20 years ago or 40 years ago or 60 years ago grew up with a lot of shit that just happened to them and never saw themselves as victims.
Yeah, but that also led to other like complexes that are arguably just as bad.
Well, so the conversation took a turn into, when this is how rape came up, and I added to the list, me saying, there's some people that had sex that they didn't exactly want, but they semi kind of consented implicitly to. They never said no, and they just did it, and then they regretted it. And then they had a conversation with somebody saying, well, I didn't really want to. And they're like, did you say stop? And they're like, well, no, I kind of like pushed back a little bit, but then we did it anyways. And then the third party going, well, you were raped. You're a victim of rape. You need to seek counseling. And then they become a victim because they joined the victims group when it wasn't there. And there are versions of rape. Rape is a spectrum. Okay. Now, obviously, if you say no to someone and they proceed, you've been raped. But there's also the like, not trying to be easy, saying like, oh, not tonight, but then you kind of still take the physical emotions forward and like you're also progressing it. I don't know how we got there from.
That's dangerous territory that I don't really want to wade further into.
For a couple of dudes to talk about. It wasn't me that was progressing the conversation. I just brought up the idea.
Yeah. Let's do 2 or 3 minutes on like unrealistic expectations and then wrap.
Well, we got to hit this bar trivia. You want to hit the bar trivia question quick, and then we can see.
Yeah, so bar trivia question. 2 moms and 2 daughters go out to lunch. Each one of them consumes 1 portion of food. After the meal is complete, the group has consumed 3 portions of food. How is this possible?
All right. Cool. 2 moms, 2 daughters go out to lunch. They each consume a portion of food. Once the lunch is done, they've consumed 3 portions. How is that possible? All right. What do you want to hit next year?
Unrealistic expectations. And we've already talked a little bit about rom-coms and the you complete me. And people, I think that it builds unrealistic expectations both for men and for women, because women expect, because if you look at some rom-coms, like the women are acting really, really terribly, and the men just put up with like really shitty behavior, and like all in the hopes of being able to date them, and usually like they end up together despite both partners making bad choices. And so like I think it reinforces women being able to treat men poorly and expect that the men will continue chasing them. And I think
the man is the white knight. The man is the ever veering,
but it also reinforces men like being really persistent in the face of being told no, which like if you're told no, like that's the end of it.
Well, a lot of rom-coms are rejection, and then the man just continues. Yeah, you're right. The man continues to pursue, and that is the dignified within the movie. That is the dignified approach. This man is this noble man who's going to continue to press forward. And do you remember the issue that happened in my cross-country team, like junior year? About
you got to make it quick.
About the not fresh. I think it was a freshman that was like attracted to this senior or something.
They're married now.
No, they're not married. I know this for a fact.
Were they at one point?
Oh, maybe very young. But basically, he just pushed and pushed and pushed, and she said, "No, this is making me so uncomfortable. This is making me so uncomfortable."
Are the initials RV and MM?
Yeah, I think so. And then finally, she went into this crazy depression, like locked herself in the room, crying all the time. And he had won, and he had worn her down. And she went into this crazy depression. I was the only person speaking out, like being like, "This is fucking wild, guys. Are you like? Am I the only one that's aware? Like this person is on top of this person, like physically, emotionally, and the other person keeps saying no, But like no parents, no coaches, no friends are stepping in and saying this needs to stop. I was the only person that was like, guys, are you fucking paying attention to this? And I got calls from the parents of the guy saying, Justin, this is none of your business. Like, and I was like, are you not?
I remember because she was a friend of mine as well, and she would be telling me like, "This guy just won't leave me alone, and it's really weird. And like, he's 3 years younger than me. I don't want to have anything to do with him." And I was like, "Well, then stop talking to him."
I want to talk real quick about porn. So we're going to take that off of the live podcast, 5 more minutes, and we'll talk about porn.
Porn and social media.
And you got to subscribe and visit SipTalkPodcast.com to hear more. Thank you guys for joining on the live experience of SipTalk Podcast. Come join. Have a drink with us next time. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining. Adios. Goodbye. Goodbye, TikTok. And goodbye, Instagram.
All right, I'm putting my feet up since we're no longer live.
Well, no, we are live. We are live. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You put your feet up if you want, though. I do want to talk about porn when it gets to unrealistic expectations, because I think a lot of young people now, especially, are exposed to porn where sex is that much easier. Easier. And it's also that much weirder in porn. Like porn sex is not real sex, especially when you were young.
The way that I've heard people describe porn sex is like porn sex is stunt sex.
Well, I mean, I've watched porn sex.
Yeah, but like it's like what looks good for the camera isn't something that necessarily feels good for the people involved.
Oh well, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
And like it's like think about like the kind of driving that you see in movies. Do people drive like that in real life? Most of the time, not.
Most of the time, not. But yeah, sometimes I do.
Yeah, but like, I mean, well, you also have some movies like that describe driving normally. But like, if you think about like a lot of movie driving is like nobody drives that way, but it's entertaining to watch on the screen. So fine, we'll do it.
So one, let me just talk about the porn sex and the on-demand ability to have sex. It's not like that in real life. You have to get somebody to like you first in order for them to show you their private.
And even if they like you, they're not going to be interested all the time.
Well, but also, even if somebody likes you, it doesn't mean they want to show you their private parts or let you touch their private parts, or they want anything to do with your private parts. Okay. But also, I don't know if you've noticed this, I've been 14 for the last 20 something years.
I was playing pool the other week with my pool coach who's like 68, and he was like, "You and your third grade sense of humor." And I'm like, I take offense to that. I would expect at least 7th grade.
Fair enough. But porn has also gotten really weird. Porn, I don't know how much porn you consume. I don't consume as much as I did. Actually, I probably didn't consume much at 14 because the internet wasn't really
yeah.
But I mean, I remember porn on the computer in the early days, and me just wanting like a clear picture of like what a pussy. Yeah. you couldn't find it.
But yeah, now porn's like stepsister this. I'm like, this is fucking weird,
okay,
dude.
So that's where I was gonna go with this. Is that that porn sex is like, one, it's very rapey. It's very like choky, put you in a van. You're on a job interview, and
there's a strong coercive element to
a
lot of it.
There's a very but I think that also speaks to the guys that like can't get sex and they don't know how to, and that this would be their angle. This would be their only angle, would be to coerce someone into getting it. But it's very rapey. It's also very incestual.
Yeah, which
the stepsister, the step sibling, the mother, the father, the stepmother, stepfather. Like
all of that, yeah.
I don't know anybody in real life who. I mean, I don't know many people with step siblings, but I know some people with step siblings, and like the last thing in their mind, as far as I know, is I want to fuck this person.
No,
and it's. But I mean, the point that I was just going to make is there's a lot of incest. There's a lot of rapiness to it. It's not a reflection of real life. So the thing is, when you're 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, and still a virgin because you have a difficulty making relationships, especially if you were 14 in 2020 during the pandemic, and then your next year was basically remote, which is like if you're 14, that 14 to 16 range where you actually go from being a child to like somebody who can drive a motor vehicle. Those are very important years.
Yeah, like
And,
14 through 18 is like the beginning of your transition to adult
but
responsibility.
it's also when your fucking hormones are going crazy.
Yep.
And if this is how you see sex kind of for the first time, this is what your expectations are. So if you're trying to build relationships and it's not like going the way that you're expecting.
Well, and it's also like, so you're talking about how like today's porn is shaping the minds of men, but it's also shaping the minds of women because women are starting to feel like they need to engage to some degree with what's happening on the porn screen, even if it's really uncomfortable for
Well,
them.
what I was going to say is this is why some women, on that note, but this is maybe why some women might be backing out of wanting relationships, is that their first relationships in their late teens and early 20s are guys that are kind of expecting this, like, you're going to get on your knees, I'm going to slap you in the tits and slap you on the face. Like, I mean, listen, I've been in some situations where people are asking for that, but for the most part, it's like, I don't know. I don't want to, no, thank you.
I was with a girl once who wanted me to choke her, and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, it's really fucking weird. It's very, and usually a lot of that stuff does come from a bit of trauma. I'm not saying always the case.
Yeah, this was her idea, not mine, by the way.
You could be someone who's experienced no trauma, who likes to be choked and punched, but my guess is most of the time, I mean, not my guess, like clinically speaking, most of the time that does come from some form of trauma. Um, but I could see why people just being uncomfortable with this and just not wanting it. And that's another. We didn't go there in this episode, but a lot of people are not comfortable having sex and not comfortable being that close with people in general. So a relationship, traditionally speaking, is you're sharing some of your most intimate aspects of your life, whether it's your physical space, whether it's your body, whether it's your emotions. And a lot of people, especially since the pandemic, have not been conditioned to do this in person.
No, and like I've dated some girls that say like coming out of their last relationship, they didn't feel like they could be loved by anybody.
But that's, my guess, is an emotional abusive form of relationship.
I think in the one circumstance I'm thinking of, it was definitely an abusive relationship
Yeah,
that they were coming out of.
and that goes to the building yourself back up. And let me just hit the last one on here, which is the last kind of our kind of itemized dashes here, and then we can jump off, and I'll let you go for a run after this. But the no time. In a world where minimum wage does not produce a living income,
Not even close.
and people have to, not that I'm not, and we've had a conversation with this. I'm not saying it needs to, but what I'm saying is
I would.
What I'm saying is some people need to work a lot. Maybe they have kids, they don't find the time, or maybe they just have to work 2 jobs to get by, or maybe they're students. There are a lot of medical students, a lot of people in law school where dating really isn't something that they can fit into their life. I mean, I remember early in real estate, me thinking, like, if I can see somebody once a week, like that's a basic premise for a relationship. Now, as an adult, me thinking, I mean, this is me kind of looking back, and I probably could do it again. I don't know, but it takes a certain mindset to only want to see somebody once a week.
Yeah,
Like,
and
that's a pretty
sometimes that once
minimal
a week
amount.
is still even a big ask.
Yeah, well, if you're really busy, and some people require attention more than once a week. Most people these days require attention on demand. You send a message, and somebody can't get back to you until I had such great freedom in my real estate job, where if somebody sends me a text message, for the most part, I'm going to see it and get back. Somebody sends me an email, I'm going to see it and get back. But there were many jobs that I had where if somebody sends me a message, I'm not getting back to them until the end of the day. And there's a good chance at the end of the day, I have voicemails and phone calls and text messages and emails or things to do in person where I'm not getting back to them until the next day. Like, there's not enough time to get back to somebody. So time is something we probably should have caught on air, because it's not.
We touched on it a little bit.
Well, it's not as explicit as porn. I was trying to tease porn a little bit. But porn is a big one, and then time is really an important one. And one other last thing I'm going to add is the soulmate. some people think that they just need to wait for that one person, and they have a soulmate, whether they're in Africa, Asia, Antarctica, whether they are working aboard a fishing vessel, and you'll be lucky if you catch them.
You're touching on fatalism.
Well, yeah, exactly. But
Hold on. It makes me think of a great line. A guy was doing speed dating, and he started to talk to, like, you get 2 minutes to talk to somebody. And he asked her, "Do you believe in fate?" "Yes." "Do you believe that fate brought us here together today?" "Yes." "Then fate must hate you."
what am I missing there?
The soulmate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just like Tucker Max, if you know that guy. Like that was a line from one of his books about.
Tucker Max, man. All right, we gotta go. We gotta round this one out. We'll talk about Tucker Max afterwards. His biggest, most popular book was something about dating. I'll see you in hell, right? What was this?
I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
No, there's a beer
which
in hell.
I actually own a signed copy of, and like rereading, and I'm like, this is actually pretty bad.
It was terrible. It was lucky that it came out when it did. On that note, Raj said during the pandemic, and considering that kids are still learning everything, I remember thinking that most parents must have told their children to not hug their friends and to be very afraid to share physical affection.
We're still too close to the pandemic to be able to assess long run effects of trauma that like the 2 or 3 years of isolation had on kids. Like that's something that's going to play out over the next 5 to 20 years, and who knows? I'm sure there'll be studies on it.
Yeah, I'm certain there will. There already are some. But that concludes the meeting of the Midnight Society. Thank you for joining SipTalk episode 247. Don't forget to subscribe, join, visit SipTalkPodcast.com, buy us a drink, and make sure that you follow the YouTube page. You follow our audio podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so you don't miss any future episodes. And make sure you join the conversation live Thursday evenings, 8:30 to 9:30, give or take, us running a little bit late. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Joe.
Adios. All right, you made it to the end. Thank you for making it. Don't forget to go online, SipTalkPodcast.com, follow the audio podcast, follow the video podcast, and buy us a drink.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.